team in the street. Okay. So we're taking questions, okay, about this. But one of the things that Carlton gets the feel for the street. I don't necessarily get that same feel, okay, and so what I'm asking him to do, give me some questions from what the street is looking. Like sometimes I'm up there at 40,000 feet. The street is like, we can't hear you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what's going on? What's the questions here in Cincinnati?
Well, the main questions here in Cincinnati, Ohio, from you, the young ladies,
Yeah.
especially those with small children, is the economic situation.
All right.
Access to food, in the community, but not GMO food,
Mm.
but natural food like onions, potatoes, and things of that nature. Beets.
Okay. So there's a couple issues that relative to that.
And,
Uh, in Cincinnati, we have the headquarters of Kroger, right?
yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Now Kroger has 300 jewelry stores, and they get their gold and diamonds not from directly from Africa, but through middle brokers. So one of the things that we have as a leverage is to talk to them about, okay, what is we can do in the food deserts. Okay, so to do that, okay, our whole plan is to get 20,000 in the city to come together in our corporation. Okay. And so the whole idea, we tried to have a coalition initially, but now we're going to do alliance, household to household. Okay, starting with us in that you've been training under our treasurer Anthony Morgan and the
Yes, sir.
programs for funding that we have in place.
Mhm.
Okay, and so, as a matter of fact, they got a better seat for you, Carlton. Okay, all right. So, I didn't know that you were going to make it for sure, so I didn't set it up.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Hmm.
all right,
Yes, sir. I was happy.
all right. But okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to give equity, okay, in the corporation that does the work.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Okay.
All right. So just like, okay, taking you, all right, the work that you've done to get where you are at. Okay. You've now talked to Anthony. You've seen the financial programs that we have at FAU funding. Okay.
Yes, sir.
.com. It's now tax season. People are, if you, especially if you mention that they're children, they have children, then they're getting money back, okay, for earned income child, okay, and the tax cut actually gave more money back for that, okay. So in that regards, okay, what we're doing is we're setting people up in their own business,
Yes, sir.
okay, all right, and they're partnering up with us. Okay, so that we're all moving, and you have a personal, and that's one of the things that's going to be happening with you over the next 2 weeks. We signed the original agreement on the MOU. Okay, but I know. So you're a literal brother. You need to see it first. Is this working for me? Then
Yes,
I
sir.
can be truthful and talk to somebody else because
Yes, sir.
it's working for me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I understood that I wasn't being clear because I'm up here at 40,000 feet,
Yes,
and
sir. Yes, sir.
when we started out, we were walking together. You
Yes,
had
sir.
access, and then I disappeared for a year. Well, look, you know my health issues and et cetera, but that period, the creator is good. I'm able to do that now. We walk in hand to make this happen for people.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
So in that regards, okay, uh, in your corporation, okay, so there's two sides. There's the nonprofit side and there's the for-profit side.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the nonprofit side, okay, is the side that is beneficial to the community, beneficial to your family as a collective. The for-profit side is the part that we're into right now that you've been training up with Anthony Morgan, okay, and how with FAU funding, how we can put together funding programs, okay, that we have in hand to move money to people. Now, the next step is when we sign this agreement with Fifth Third Bank, okay, and the signature on that. So now they've said they've moved $7 billion so far, okay, out of the 30 billion. Okay, but now when I signed it, okay, and people will see the pictures later because you got some great pictures of you and the CEO. But when I talked to Greg Carmichael, he said that that was the minimum. That was the agreement. That was the minimum. So it's up to us to use this to show here in Atlanta and other areas in the states that Fifth Third serves, okay, that minimum, we can move it in the community. So that if we have 20,000 here in Cincinnati who just put the minimum in their bank account as their payment to FAU, okay, for their business program. So let's call it for the businesses $100 a month, okay, times 20,000. That's 2 million times 12 months. That's 24 million, okay. And so that gives us the leverage of $100 million. Okay. And so, so when a family talks about, well, I want to have a house, okay, and I want to move my family in a house, and I have a voucher that is paying 700 to $1,000 for me to move in the house, and I can't find any place to move into, then that talks about where we build a house for you. Okay, which then means other people who are in the 20,000 get to build the house for you. Okay, and so they get employment. Okay, and so we both know that. Okay, because you're a painter, carpenter, general trades, and I'm a Turner certified construction manager, and we got people in the mix who have that experience, not in family and professionally. Okay, so the whole idea is that, and through cooperative economics, that we can work together for your benefit. Okay. All right. And so, we're not doing it saying that you should be in business. Okay. So that you're in business for just us, or you're in business for yourself. Rather, cooperatively, I want it to be in business that benefits you, but that in the agreement with the nonprofit, that part that you don't do for the community, we take the responsibility to do for the community. Okay. And that's the whole part that I talked to you about. Economic empowerment begets social enlightenment. All right, so roundabout way, I don't know if I answered your question or not. If I didn't, give it back to me.
I'd like to give them a little update on, exactly what FAU funding is and some of the
Go for
services
it.
that they offer to the community. We have for commercial and residential, uh, well, commercial properties, which could be rental or a place that produces a profit. And we can, for each employee, also for every business in the city of Cincinnati, Ohio, uh, we offer, uh, if you hire an employee, we can get you anywhere from $2,450 to $9,600 per employee. Uh, and each employee you hire and each employee after that. We also, for commercial properties, we can get you up to 150,000 to $300,000 VAT on each property. And also, we have FAU funding where we have the economic inclusion for low to moderate individuals in low to moderate communities, where you do not need a social security number, you do not need a police report. It is a credit-based product. So therefore, all you do is submit your credit report. If you have a score of 660 to 680, they have some packages where you could be funded in less than 3 days. You could have a line of credit of $250,000 for working capital, equipment, marketing, whatever your business needs are. Also, if you have that 660 to 680, you have a package where you can get 5,000 to $2 million, and you could have it as little as quick as 14 working days. So We have a multitude. We have senior citizen packages where we leave no one behind. Where you can take your property as a senior citizen. You own your house. You can we go through that, get finance, get a line of credit where you can open a business or you can use it for other things. So we have a multitude of things. Uh, this is for like the drug dealer standing on the corner. Some of the individuals that I'm working with right now. The report on that is they had an opportunity to go through this process, and these young men are no longer talking about selling drugs.
And that's a key that's a key point that we want to go into, okay? Because a lot of the underground economy and moving because they may be drug dealers because that's where the money is. They're going where other famous people say, well, where is the money in the community? They've never seen being able to sell anything other than drugs to make money. And one of the things that I admire about you is that you're going to them to show them that they can do other things that are positive in the community other than sell drugs. But if they in selling drugs, there's this whole move to legalize marijuana, okay, in the state, and African Americans are not part of that move, okay. So dealing with this whole issue of drug sales, okay, and the destruction in the community is a section that we're going to talk about on the next show, as a matter of fact, because the key is you know what happened with down at City Hall on Friday, okay,
Yes, sir.
where the mayor asked the city manager to resign,
Yes, sir.
and the city
Seen the,
manager
I seen
had,
the
had
posting.
and the city manager has
Yeah.
not responded to it, but various council members have responded and said we see no reason for the city manager to respond. As a matter of fact, it's his right to manage the 6,500 employees of the city, including the police department, and it's his right to take the vice commander of the police department and offer him either a chance to resign or take a terminal leave.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. But what we have to talk about when we talk about that and policing and that, okay, is that when we talk about crime is driven, as you've seen, by economic necessity. Okay,
Yes, sir.
I don't have any other way to make any money.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. This is the way that I've seen people make money, and this is the only way I can see to make money. But that I'm a salesperson, okay, because I'm out there at 3 in the morning selling some rock. Okay,
Yes,
all
that's what
right,
that's the life.
I'm
I mean, you got to get it.
yeah,
I mean,
okay, yeah,
yes,
yeah,
sir.
and so our job in that case is to provide a path for them in terms of gainful employment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right,
That's where I
and
come in.
that's again as a street team leader. Okay, to represent to the street in all that we're doing, like in FAU funding. Okay, but also in this representation. So you brought the women who are saying, "How can I feed my children good
Yes.
food?" Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. Now we had the plan that when you first met me years ago, we had the plan for that. Okay, by using the water that we would get from the sewer, cleaning it up, and then using it to grow food. Okay, and that would be non-GMO aquaculture-based food here to be given to the Cincinnati public schools. We're back at that.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
we're we're
Excellent.
we're we're
Very excited about
well, the key is that the sewer system agreement is 50 years old. When I talk about everything being okay, 50 year, okay, at this point, Martin Luther King killed
Yes,
50
sir.
years ago.
Mhm.
Robert Kennedy killed 50 years ago. We're exploded in violence 50 years ago. All right. Well, 50 years ago, they also created the Metropolitan Sewer District. And so now we're at that fight point. And so when I talk about those women who you're talking about and others to own part of that 20,000, okay, households. So they each will own 0.005, okay, percent. Okay. And then in the county, same thing, so that we would have 40,000 households working together for their self-interest. Okay. By saying, why don't you do a public-private partnership? And so, and a public-private partnership led by the Cincinnati Empowerment Corporation, which is Friends of the African Union Global Operations Center. Okay. And by the way, I just informed the Chamber of Commerce today that we're back. Okay, the downtown chamber, not the
Yes,
African
sir.
American
Yes, sir.
chamber. Okay,
Yes, sir.
and that we want to make sure that the communities that were involved in the creation of the empowerment zone, the 50,000 people in that poverty areas, that they get theirs.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Yes, sir.
and so one of the things, and as you put together in Evanston, okay, was one of the 9 communities, and we're going to make sure that this word gets out, because in April the agreement's up, and people who are going to be making money right now, it looks like to be the lawyers, because the county and the city are looking to sue each other on who owns MSD. Ultimately, it's owned by the people, and
That's
how
right.
does it benefit the people? And we think we have a plan for benefiting the people. What's another question? That's one.
Another question is, uh, you know, uh, more information processes on uh, how they get involved in FAU funding, and that also so that the young ladies, can we develop a program where we ask the people who are the upper line people to allocate funds so we can send some of these people for credit repair and stuff like this. Because
All
uh,
right, so let's talk
yeah,
about.
mm,
Okay, so the basic plan is right now, the sewer is worth about $16 billion. Okay, it's carried on the books for about $2 billion. All right. So in the public-private partnership, the whole idea is to get a loan at 65% LTV that allows us, okay, to have the money for reconstructing the sewer, building housing, and sponsorship in the building of the housing, okay, is just that, for raising up people's credit scores, okay, which is going to cost about, we figure in their business about $250 a month, okay, including the training and including the membership and the services. Okay, so we're going to cover that more in depth next week. Okay. We're going to have the graphics and the slides, and we'll be bringing it forward. But what this comes out of, it's called a public-private partnership. It's allowed in the state of Ohio. You got to have participation of this city Department of Transportation, the county, okay, engineering office, and ours is based around the sewer, which is the aspect of there's $2 billion worth of contracts that are out there on the sewer. It's the big thing in there, but it also provides the funding for the program for the households. When we talk about the 40,000 households, it provides the funding for low income, and this is part of the program that we put together. Okay, back in 2016. Okay, for the Greater Cincinnati Community Reinvestment Coalition, that they decided that they didn't want to do that. Now we're going to do it. Okay, and we'll look forward to uh, uh, over this next week. We've brought together the engineering company. We're reaching out, okay, to the backup that we need, because they're saying you are going to do this. We're a small engineering company, and so we're talking to the big engineering companies to come in and partner with us, okay, to get this done. In terms of financing, that's the part that we have in place when we signed the Fifth Third agreement. That included $30 billion 11 billion in mortgages, 10 billion for business, 9 billion in the community. And as Greg Carmichael said, that was the base. And the whole idea is to get access to the state pension fund, okay, through the Ohio Infrastructure Bank. And again, this is key. This is money that's owned by the people that was put away for the employees of the state that gets a return on investment based on putting money in Wall Street right now, not in Main Street. So our whole motto is, take that money out of Wall Street, put it in Main Street, okay? Because we need to reboot Main Street right now. Main Street is hurting. Main Street, you every day when women are asking about, what's the food quality? Why is the school system failing?
Yes.
How do I get my kids to school? How is safety in the community? These are all issues that we should have solutions for.
Yes.
And so we just had the neighborhood summit. Okay, we'll be talking about that on the next week. Also, report from that. Okay, but the whole idea is to make a change that's systematic in Cincinnati that shows the nation how it can be done. Okay. And, Carlton, you play an important role in doing street team, bringing these questions to the table. I look forward next week for us getting together and, you having more questions and me having more concise answers.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You can get a hold of me at friendsoftheafricanunion.com, FAU chairman at friendsoftheafricanunion.com. You can Twitter, okay, at FAU chairman and look forward to it. If you want to see us on Facebook, just go to Friends of the African Union, Cincinnati. Was it FAU Cincinnati? Which one is it?
FAU Cincinnati, FAU CBF.
Okay, yeah.
2 words, FAU CBF on Facebook.
Yeah, and it's FAUCBF@gmail.com.
Yes.
Okay.
FAU CBF
Yeah, so
2063 at gmail.com.
okay, see,
Yes,
all
sir.
right, and so Friends of the African Union, Google us. Looking forward to you being in contact, watching this in whatever media. My name is Herschel Daniels. I'm chairman of Friends of the African Union. This is Carlton Brown. He is the street team leader for Friends of the African Union here in Cincinnati. Peace be with you today, and we look forward to working with all of you for the people of the African Union.
Good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, I didn't know you were gonna
Yeah,
get.
I was on my way. I was
Yeah.
trying to get her, halfway on my ride. She is ordained at our church down the street.
Okay.
So-
What, at New Vision?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
and
Okay.
she's also in the system.
Wait, a minute, you're a certified lay minister?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm going to be an elder pastor.
Okay. Oh, okay. You're in.
Yeah,
You're going
yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good.
Oh.
Okay. I'm a
Right to
lay
the job.
servant. Okay. All right. We got to get you involved in Black Methods for Church Renewal.
Oh, I'm already.
Oh, I didn't see you at the meeting.
No,
on Saturday.
I wasn't at no meeting. No.
Okay. Yeah. Bishop Palmer.
But
was
you
there.
saw my video.
Huh?
You saw my video.
I didn't. Was that you? That was your video? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I saw your video.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, we definitely gonna have a talk because I brought up in the meeting about our $17 billion pension fund. Okay, and have a discussion about why aren't we using that expertise here and the 1 billion in socially responsible investment.
Mhm.
So we have that. I'm not asking for any of the money. I'm just asking for the expertise. So I've been up to Chicago to the pension fund headquarters.
Mhm.
Okay, we got 700 professionals up there. Okay, and I just asked that we show off here in Cincinnati to set the model forever. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, all right.
Move this way.
Sliding.
Okay.
All right, I'll move to your right, to my right a little bit.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, let him sit down, let me see, because that's about it, it was just a slight.
All right.
He keeps it down low.
What's that? Like,
Scooch just a little bit to your left, just a little bit. Yeah.
oh, so are you familiar with the United Methodist Women headquarters in New York, across from the United Nations?
No.
Okay, so United Methodist Women have a headquarters right across the street from the United Nations. And this Thursday, we're going to have a side event as part of the UN Women at 8:30 there. Okay, and so some people I need to introduce you to. Okay, all right, that is within.
I am at your disposal.
Okay, all right. So you're in theological school now, or?
I have my interview tomorrow with the DS. I have candidacy summit starts in July,
Yeah.
and I start seminary this fall.
Okay, all right. So what's your degree in now?
Criminal justice.
Really? All
That's my
right,
specialty.
all right.
I wanted to be a lawyer.
Uh-huh.
Change.
Okay,
Oh,
all right,
geez.
all right. Yeah, so have you read into the collaborative agreement?
The
Cincinnati Collaborative
no,
Agreement? Okay, so during the Obama era, that was the basis for all of the Obama era, okay, collaborative agreements with police. Okay, so, yeah,
Just go to the right.
okay,
One more.
all right,
Look, just a tad bit, watch your fingers.
all right. So the collaborative agreement was in the Bush administration. Okay, so it was between us as a class, the Cincinnati Police Department, and the police union, the city, and the Department of Justice certified under the federal courts. And then out of that became, okay, community-based policing, okay, as implemented here. All right, and so okay. All right.
Yeah, she been speaking about a public-private partnership.
Yes. Yes, Steve. Okay. Steve? Okay, I'm gonna have to shut down the phone. You know, you can ask the questions online, you know, online, you know where I am on there. All right, thanks. Okay.
Slide that all the way, either push it all the way up or down.
All right, so you ever hear the term restorative justice?
I'm sorry.
Restorative justice.
All right, look over there.
I may.
Okay, all right. So this part that we're going to cover here is going to be on the African Union and United Nations. Okay, and so I'm going to throw in the part where the United Methodist Church, we have 5 million African members on the continent. Okay, out of our 12 million members,
You got my phone?
5, yeah, she's got it.
On Facebook.
Okay, all right. Yeah, well, you've got,
All right, you guys, ready?
all righty.
Oh, this one.
I'm gonna go live on Facebook real quick.
Okay, we gotta get started. Ready?
All righty.
We together now?
We are together.
Ready? Hey, I say quiet on set. All right.
My name is Herschel Daniels. I'm chairman of Friends of the African Union. And this is our discussions about the African Union, the United Nations, and the United States. It's been a pretty eventful week, okay, as today the president has fired his Secretary of State when he just came back from Africa. Okay, he left on March 6th to go to Africa. We didn't report a lot on it because we had heard rumblings. And sure enough, when he came back, he was no longer Secretary of State as of March 31st, subject to the CIA director being approved. We will have a new Secretary of State in the United States. Now, the question is, what changes are going to go on, okay, with this happening, okay? What changes are going to affect Africa, where Africa is a vital component of the world in terms of and is the United States' future. Okay, if you look in the United States 50 years from now, okay, a vital market is Africa. Okay, and right now, the United States has 47 million Americans who are of African descent, direct African descent. Of course, everybody's out of Africa. If you take, hundreds of thousands of years, everybody's out. And people who ask me that question and saying, "Well, aren't you a believer in the salvation through Jesus Christ?" And I said, "Yes, I am. But if you could tell me a God moment and how to define it and give me the time scale, you're doing better than I am." Okay, and so I'm here with FAU Cincinnati street team leader Carlton Brown. Okay, have been together now, what, 4 years?
Yes, sir.
About 4 years. Okay, and so we're moving into a different stead in terms of this year. One of the things we're coming back in to do is how we bring together the AU, the United Nations, the United States, how our faith-based, okay, organizational relationships work in that, okay, to be our brother's keeper, okay, how that works, because if we're not, okay, because here in America, we're the biggest, baddest black people. Okay, and you heard me say this before. We 47 million here earn 1.2 trillion dollars in our GDP, where all of Africa's 1.2 billion people in 55 countries, they only earn, as of last year, approximately 3.3 trillion dollars. Okay, and so those figures came from 2017 October, when we were in the United Nations during Africa Week. Now, FAU, let me just read a little bit what FAU is so that people understand what we are. FAU is an economic, social, humanitarian, charitable, education, and new media civil society ruling body founded to work for the benefit of the people of the African Union and the African diaspora in their host countries. One tool in this is through the FAU Chamber of Commerce. Another tool is through the FAU as a public benefit corporation out of New York, FAU Economic Development Corporation. And the way we're organized, okay, is that each country has a bureau. And so we're the FAU USA Bureau, okay? Like we have one for South Africa, another one for Nigeria. We're now boarding one for Mexico. Okay, most people don't know in Mexico, okay, that the second president of Mexico was a African, okay, and that they have a history, a long history of African participation. But FAU was formed in 2012 based on the actions in 2005 of the African Union Assembly. Now, that's the leaders of Africa. That's all 55 nations. It's called the Assembly. This year it's headed by Rwanda. Okay. And they're in charge of changing the lives of Africans worldwide by their collective action. And so we subscribe to that. Okay. But we add, in doing so, we will call on their self-interest. And when we say on their self-interest, we're talking about Africa is probably worth 300 and something $trillion in the assets. Okay. And we know just one country, Zimbabwe, okay, by when I said do an outreach to African nations in 2015.
Yes, sir.
You brought the ambassador from Zimbabwe here to Cincinnati. And so most people don't know that Zimbabwe is the sister city
Yes,
to
sir.
Cincinnati. And we didn't ask for any honors at that time. He came in and we sat down and negotiated. Okay. What would be the format for that? Okay. A public private partnership. And now in 2018, it was 3 years later, but it's now being shaped. Okay. I mean, it's one of the things about Zimbabwe is that they just went through a change in leadership, but not change in political party in charge of the country, but they're having an election this year. We said that we could, and we talked to civil society who's opposed to the government, and we said, what if government would agree to create a public-private partnership that would take care of water, would take care of sewer, would take care of power, would take care of feeding the people, would provide health care. And they said, well, we don't believe it. And we said, well, we will work to make that so. And so we are about 60 days away from finding out if it is so. Okay, if they accept our proposition, then we'll be creating a new cyber currency called the African dollar. Okay, and the African dollar will be a cyber currency based on the assets of Africa. Now, the reason that we have to do this, and you know this, but I'm going to tell the audience that doesn't know that Africa was the modern Africa was created in 1885 in Berlin. Okay, and the Treaty of Berlin. That's where 14 nations got together, including the United States. Okay, there were 14 nations, United States, and because the Europeans called this meeting because they didn't want to go to war with each other over this resource called Africa, because they had finally defeated most of the coastal plain and most of the nations except for Ethiopia, Liberia, and southern Africa. Okay, and they didn't want to go to war over the assets, so they called the meeting. The Germans, okay, hosted the meeting. The United States went, and they had an agreement called the Treaty of Berlin. And in there, one of the issues in there was stopping slavery and et cetera. But we in the United States were a signature to that treaty that's in force today. In force today. This was the modern treaty. And when I say that Africa was defeated, it took nearly 400 years to defeat Africa. And it was only defeated because of the last 50 of those years that the Europeans learned how to do war based on the American style of war. Okay, you know, we were made great first, okay, because we took Native American lands on the right of discovery, okay, and which basically said if you're a Roman Catholic and you run into some other people who aren't Roman Catholics, we could take their land because they're savages, okay. So we came over here and we, from the Spanish to the English, took the land, okay. Then second, we went into this move of slavery, okay. And slavery, unlike other slavery, slavery has always been among us, but this was a dehumanity, taking the humanity out of people such that quantified as property. Okay, and that's what slavery is about is property. But we took it to the ninth degree here in America. All right, and as a matter of fact, we took it so that the slave master would rape the slave who would bear the children, and then you would enslave the children. Okay, all right. Uh, and so those two issues with our and entrepreneurism, those three issues together made America great on the first time. Okay, because with King Cotton, we could produce the cotton that the world could use, and you know all the cotton in the mills up in North and in England and et cetera. The United States was a great production of that. But what we had shown in our first revolution, our first Civil War, okay, that we didn't fight like the Europeans fought, okay, especially in the southern part of the country. We hid behind trees, we were underneath the military ridge, and we didn't stand up and march, and so you could get mowed down. And then the second Civil War, okay, of 1860 through 1865, we showed, okay, how to use weapons of mass destruction, our mobile artillery, machine guns. Okay, they came in their own. Okay, and the Europeans watched all this, and so now they were able to defeat the armies of Africa. Okay, who had mass movement of 20 to 1 or 50 to 1. Now they had the weapons to respond to that. By 1885, they said, we're not going to have a fight, okay, among ourselves. Okay, and it took until 1963 for Africans to form an organization of African unity that in 2000 did a transition into the African Union, Muammar Gaddafi, in 2001, 2002. And then in 2005, this is what they said, the leaders of Africa. They defined the people of the African diaspora as, I quote, peoples of African descent and heritage living outside the continent, irrespective of their citizenship, and who remain committed to contribute to the development of the continent and the building of the African Union, unquote. Okay. And so when the United States State Department had a meeting here in 2012 in Cincinnati, we attended that meeting. And because I used to be a diplomat for the country of Guinea on the senior honorary consul staff, we attended that meeting and understood that we had to change our directory. We couldn't be Pan-Africanists anymore, saying we need to go back to Africa as an African, because we met with the African Union. They said, you're our sixth region. You are part of us, but you're not officially in the Constitutive Act until we change that Constitutive Act. And we're about 10 countries short of that happening. But they said to us, we've got a mission for you. We need you to carry out that mission. And this year in 2018, part of that mission we're going to carry out. Okay, when we met, I was of the opinion that we could get it done in 2 years, that we could be right on, and by 2016 that we could get it all done. I was pretty naive. Okay, but now FAU recognizes that the African Union to date is the only organization which has the structural and functional capacity to unite and service the needs and aspirations of the more than 1.5 billion African people globally. And in 2018, and those in the future, and together, we in the United States and the African diaspora in Africa have a global economy of over $5 trillion. Okay, just 1.2 of that out is United States. But that the African nations have a business opportunities for us that we can compete on worth $390 billion a year. Okay, and so it's ours to write that script. Okay, and in October 2017 at the United Nations during Africa Week, when the United Nations Office for Africa, the African Union, the African Development Bank, NEPAD, and the World Bank was there, and we were part of the delegation that was designated as African, representing African civil society. And our senior Queen Mother, the chairwoman of the New Future Foundation delegation, I was there and with our delegation, and included in that delegation was the chapter of Keys of the Kingdom, the Black Methodist Church Renewal, because I'm the president of that chapter. But we opened that door, okay, over the next year. And so there's specific areas that the African Union asked us to fulfill. And I'm looking forward to working with you and others as we create this year, as we celebrate this. using the tour that we have planned. Okay.
We're
All
waiting
right.
to hear about that.
All right. All right. Well, let me give it to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Oh, Jenny, you're watching. Okay. Dr. Jenny Lassiter. So I can blame you, Jenny. Okay, that I'm down on doing this because you taught me in the Grassroots Leadership Academy what it meant to be in grassroots leadership. Yeah, okay. Uh, so this is the 40th year anniversary between the American Indian movement and Black Power movement, okay, in 1978. So we will be celebrating that. We have confirmed on July 14th the Lincoln Memorial. Confirmed. Okay, all right. Park Service and et cetera has given it to us. Now we're making the application for July 28th, 2 weeks later, which is the day in 1868 that Africans became Americans. Okay, so if we get that, then we have that period. You know, America celebrates July 4th, but 10 days after that, okay, we have July 14th, where Native Americans and African Americans are going to celebrate together. And the thing that you should know is that DC has now given us a staging point of a facility, the Malcolm X Opportunity Center, all right, to work out of
Yes, sir.
in DC. All right,
Yes,
so
sir.
we have a staging center in DC. Our FAU unit, okay, in Oregon, okay, that they're working, okay, to bring sponsorships, okay, to focus on that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So they're working with Key Bank. We're going to be working with Fifth Third Bank.
Yes, sir.
Our FAU group in Columbus will be working with Huntington.
Okay.
Okay. But then, you know, those of us who are, as of members of the United Methodist Church, because we have 5 million members in the continent,
Yes, sir.
and that are, you know, we have African University in Zimbabwe. You know, we're focused on our faith base, okay, to set that up through that way. Okay. All right. So in putting that together, okay, you can go to friendsoftheafricanunion.com. You can email me at fauchairman@friendsoftheafricanunion.com. And you understand that our basic operational model is the creation of public-private partnerships, okay, where you have the government and you have the private sector and you have the people as represented by the non-governmental organizations, civil society, faith-based, and the faith-based basically comes in to act as quality control. Okay, so what you want the faith-based to do is to say these are the standards that all okay should be doing. These are the ethics that all should be operating under. These are the operations and to take lead responsibility for those that don't have. Okay, whereas the civil society is to bring together all the nonprofits, what's called in America nonprofits, and with the mantra that it's members of the African family worldwide. It's time to capitalize on our joint skills, our contacts, and intellectual property to create a solution with the goal of ending institutionalized racism against people of African descent. Okay. And as you know, that's what we did in the United Nations in 2014 and using the Universal Periodic Review. So that's what we're actually going to be issuing a review on March 23rd for Mexico. Mexico's period this year for the review. All right. And that review is based on that Mexicans in the United States, whether they're non-resident citizens, non-citizen residents, or whether they're citizens, send back to Mexico each year $69 billion a year. And so the whole idea is to address issues like the 30,000 Mexicans plus who are killed, okay, because of our addiction here, okay, the narco wars that are carried on in Mexico because of American addiction, okay, not because of Mexican addiction, but because of American addiction. The economic poverty that drives them to move here in America, where there's over 5.8 million Mexicans who are non-citizen residents who are in the American workforce. Okay, there's a whole range of items that out of FAU Mexico that we basically came up with a solution that said that there's 11 million non-citizen residents in the United States who are adults. And there's a program called the EB-5. We took a modification and said that they would pay a civil fine of $100,000 that would be payable over 25 years. Okay, but that it's not just them, but governments, employers, et cetera, could buy into that fund. Because you got to remember that the 8 million non-citizen residents who are here in our workforce are employed by somebody, and then they're employing them, then they're not checking their credentials. That means that they're employing them illegally. Okay. So as a response to that, we said, let's make this legal. Let's, and create a fund, okay, that fund then can address bringing the 16 million non-citizen residents, well, 15 million non-citizen residents, and million children into healthcare. Okay, when they come, they're gonna need healthcare, schooling, and so nobody can say they're going to become a burden, okay, to the, in many cases, urban failing infrastructure, okay, here in America. Because, I just learned in DC that they only graduate less than 40% of the students in high school.
Wow.
Here in Cincinnati, at least here in Cincinnati, I think the graduation rate's nearly 80%. But when we met, it was in the 60s, and when I first came here 2 decades ago, it was 50. Okay, so we in terms of addressing, and if you think about that, that means people in their 40s and 50s, a good half of them here in Cincinnati who are African descendant failed high school.
Yes.
Okay, and so what are their job, opportunities having that background? Okay, and people have to understand all this within that system. Okay, and so that's how we judge on universal periodic review human rights, and that's what we did in 2014. Okay, so I know you have some questions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
Just some questions, from the African diaspora. The wealthiest people of Africa would like to know, what is the process on how they can put forth some type of funding, because they're already ready to go with agriculture products. They have already acquired land, waiting on our assistance. They want to know, where do I invest? How do I invest?
Okay, so one of the things, okay, so each country is different, right? Okay, so each country has different laws, but what we're doing, we're working within the African Development Bank to create a investment vehicle for them to invest in, that they get their return on investment, and that return on investment then is invested in the particular country in one sustainable agriculture first. Okay, because if any government that can't feed its people is either going to have to, at a certain point, have armed, containment, or is going to be overrun because they're going to have starvation. Okay. Uh, Two, water, sewer, projects. then, to have all that, you've got to have power. Okay. Then power then feeds your education system, because now you can erase the digital divide, and you can have that. And now when you have that erase the digital divide, now you can do healthcare on using modern healthcare. And so that's exactly what we're doing, okay, here in Cincinnati. We're using this whole model here as a demonstration, as a petri dish, if you will. Okay. And this is not our idea exclusive, because in 2012, under the Obama administration, they held the Business, okay, of Africa summit here in 2012, and we attended that summit. But the problem was that we didn't find businesses that were owned by people of African descent. And so our move is to change that. And so that we're partnering with those Africans who you're talking about, okay, who are ready to invest in financial instruments that give them a guaranteed rate of return. And the net profits that are in that guaranteed rate of return, okay, are then invested, okay, long term, okay, in their particular nations. All right. So the rules for that to happen here in America actually were issued just February 14th. I was on the phone with the government today, and they're not going to have the rules finalized. Okay. All right. Until sometime in September to December. But we're going to cover those on subsequent shows. My name is Herschel Daniels. My guest has been Carlton Brown. Okay, this has been Friends of the African Union. We're talking about the United Nations, which is all the world. We're talking about African Union, which is 55 nations of the world. And we're talking about the people of African descent in the United States, which is 47 million. There's about 200 to 300 million people of African descent who are not in Africa, 1.2 billion people in Africa. And we're looking forward to you joining us week by week as we give you details on this. You can go to the website, Friends of the African Union. You can Twitter us at FAU Chairman. You can email me at Friends of the African Union, FAU Chairman at Friends of the African Union, LinkedIn, Herschel Daniels Jr., Junior. I give you thanks, and we'll be back next week. All right. Well, that was it ad hoc. I said that was it ad hoc.
Yeah, the Evanston deal, I can set that up in other places. And then you should see me when I went to Atlanta. I took the place by storm, right? So imagine dropping me in a new city, and they haven't got a taste of me. And I'm like,
well, that again, so we're cutting the deal in DC that we will have the Malcolm X Opportunity Center. Okay. All right. But what we have to do is we have to finish this. We've actually signed up with a whole group. Nobody had any questions. Okay. Okay. I appreciate everybody live. Okay. And I will be back to you next week. Have a good day. That's almost wore you out there. He was like,
Well, that, but
yeah.
your storage as well.
Your storage.
Storage as well.
storage is low.
Yeah, you got to transfer some of that off of there.
Okay.
You know, you got probably 3 gigs. Okay. Just off of.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, like,